Let's get started with how to make your project plans easy to understand with custom views, plus a demo of Visor. So just a little bit about me to get us started. I'm a project manager originally from California, now living in Manhattan. Not a huge condiment person, just for a fun personal fact to kind of break the ice. Mayonnaise and yellow mustard are at the top of my hate list. I've been featured on projectmanagers.com, so this is something I enjoy talking about. This is something I'm very passionate about, and that I've kind of given talks about before, including presentations for the Atlassian community and the Microsoft Project Users Group. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it today. And I believe in chaos-led growth and effective and efficient collaboration, which leads us to, I got 99 problems. Here are some of them. Communication overload is the first one I want to talk about today. And that's just that most organizations are drowning in SaaS apps and keeping information up to date. And everyone's preferred software is manual and time consuming, right? So you have maybe a department that loves assigning work in Asana, and then you are constantly getting messages from people on the executive team about what they want in Slack. And maybe you've even got someone who's a little more old fashioned who sends you some to-dos via carrier pigeon. All jokes aside, I know that if you all were to talk about your tech stack today, it's overwhelming. It's a lot, and different departments want things in different areas, and you have to learn all these different softwares and applications to try to make everyone happy, and it's just a lot. Another software that I think we're all pretty familiar with is Jira, but a problem that we're facing is that not every team lives in Jira, right? This is a Visor customer who said to us, I have an engineering team, and then I have a pharmaceutical team who has absolutely no idea what Jira is or how it works. And it's nice being able to assign them stuff without them having to see a ticket when they don't know what that is, right? So those of us who live in Jira, we know it, we get it. It's easy for us, but not every team does live in Jira. And how do we kind of collaborate with people who don't have a Jira license, who aren't willing to work in Jira? And what does that collaboration look like? So that's a second problem. Information needs to be shared, and keeping it accurate is hard. I don't know about you guys, but I have spent so much time updating spreadsheets, and every time something changes, you update it one spot, and then you've got to update in the spreadsheet, and then you've got to share the spreadsheet, and then you have all of these steps just to try to keep information accurate, and it's a lot. It's time consuming. You already do so much, so keeping information up to date and accurate is a huge time suck. Which brings me to why Visor. So project managers need something that helps them combine sources, like we were talking about earlier with all of these different SaaS apps. They need something that helps them to add context. So, how do you tell people what's important, what's not? There's a lot of information. That information needs context. They need something they can update easily, something that doesn't require all of that manual work and that time suck of manual accuracy in information that we were talking about. Something they can analyze quickly, see information at a glance, and just understand it and know what needs to move and what doesn't, and if there's problem areas, and something they can share freely so that they're not constantly having to send and resend the same document to collaborate with teammates. So this leads us to, how do we keep plans on track and eliminate stale data? Well, we can do that with Visor. Visor has smart syncing, which means you can pull information from your integrated apps and push changes made in Visor with the click of a button. And so let's dive deeper into that just a little bit. So there's two ways to get your information faster with Visor. Import will pull in any new information that matches an import query, right? So it could be all child issues of any given task, or it could be anything with this label across all of your Jira projects. And then you can also sync. So syncing pulls any new information for existing records, so records that you've already brought into Visor. It'll pull in any new information from Jira or your other integrated apps for those records, but it will also allow you to push changes to your integrated app. So let's say you're doing a huge just kind of cleanup and you change statuses or assign labels to a bunch of different issues. You press that sync button, all of that information goes back to Jira. So you're not doing this manual one-by-one click or the bulk update workflow that exists in Jira today. You can do that all in Visor. So that's pretty cool. You can also share with stakeholders, no licenses necessary. So you can embed your Visor workbook into communal company sites like Notion and Confluence without needing to assign additional licenses to stakeholders to see your data. I know that this is something we hear about from users and customers all the time, is they want to share Jira information, but Jira is kind of on lockdown, right? You assign these licenses are expensive. You run the risk of someone getting into your Jira instance and messing with things they shouldn't. But with Visor, you're able to just share it with someone on their email, and they can have as many privileges as you want them to have. They could be view only, where they can only look at stuff. You can allow them to comment only, which means they can see things and comment on certain things, but they can't, touch anything or change anything. So there's a lot of different ways you can mix and match it to make this sharing easy. And you don't need to pay for people to view your workbook. Viewing is completely free, which is really nice. You can also just share your Jira information and reports without having to circulate spreadsheets or send constant emails or explain other software, right? So Visor takes all of this great information and puts in views that are super simple for people to understand, so that you don't have to walk them through how Jira works or how Jira surfaces information. It's in a format that they understand and that they know. Great. You can also generate different reports to make your data tell a story. So there's 3 different ways as of right now that you can share your information in Visor, these 3 different views, which is what the presentation is about. We are always building more, so feel free to give it a shot and smash that feedback button if you have a view that would work really well for your team. But today we have our table or spreadsheet view, our Gantt view, and then a timeline / kind of swim lane view. And we'll go into more detail on all of those. So it's the data done differently. You can take your information, filter, format, and organize it like never before. So you can take this information, you can apply color formatting, you can drag and drop your issues into any order, regardless of the parent-child relationships. You can completely ignore nesting or Jira hierarchy if you want to. You can filter your data to create custom views. You can filter and format to have any newly imported or created records already done. It's not something like Excel, you bring something in and then you have to reformat that line. It's less repetitive, it's less manual work, and you can really kind of customize the things that people want to see. So what is Visor? We've talked about why, but what is it actually? Visor is visual reports that stay accurate. So using innovative cloud store technology, which was built completely in-house, we do something that other applications don't do, and we push and pull information from your connected SaaS apps differently than any other tool on the market. We don't use third-party integration partners, so nothing gets lost in translation. You're not waiting, 5-10 minutes for these kind of out-of-the-box API calls. Your information goes from one place to another. It's quick, it's simple, it translates the things it needs to, and that's something that we do differently than anyone else. You can also transform your existing data into custom views, and it's as easy as a few clicks. So you can turn your spreadsheet into a roadmap or resource allocation timeline. 3 steps. You choose your start and end dates. You choose how many levels you want to show. So if you just want that high overview epics only, you can do that. If you want it all the way down to the nitty-gritty subtasks, you can do that too. And then you choose your time frame. And that's it. Then Visor does all of the work for you. It takes all of that kind of table view, spreadsheet view information, and it generates a Gantt view or a timeline view for you. You can use different views for different audiences. So it might not make sense for someone who's not an engineering manager to see resource allocation. So they don't need to see that view. But it also might not make sense for the executives to see a super nitty-gritty Gantt view of all your projects. They just care about the bottom line. So you can make your data make sense to the people who matter most, which are your stakeholders. And whether you need Gantt or spreadsheet, Visor allows you to show your data 3 different ways, but with dozens of configuration options. So how does Visor work? Let's figure it out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through how the application works, go over some use cases, and then at the end we can answer some questions, because I want to make sure that you guys get back to your day and that everything, that we're showing you what you want to know and nothing else. So let's get down to it. All right. So this is Visor. And this is kind of the view that everyone's going to be most familiar with, which is a table view. As you can see, we already have our Jira information imported just for ease. But there's a bunch of different ways we can do things here. So at any time, if you want to change what Jira information you have, you can do that through the connections panel. But let's just focus on the views for today. So here we have our table view. As you can see, we have all of these different connected fields, and we configured those on import. So we want to see our Jira connection, which is the same thing as our summary. In this case, we wanted to visualize sprints. We have our Jira key, our priority. We have a Visor custom field. That's our CEO's interest level. So maybe that's not a custom field we want cluttering up our Jira instance, but we're showing this to executives, and we want to make sure they feel like they have a say in what we're doing. So we've got that CEO interest level, our assignee field, other Visor custom fields, which are notated by the Visor icon next to the field name, start date and end date, because maybe we want to experiment with some dates and not have those go back to Jira. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Our labels, statuses, our issue types, and we did bring in our Jira dates probably just, to check stuff out. But this is our table view, and we have a bunch of different fields that we can work with, right? So these priority fields, for example, are a drop down, and we can select, high, we can change it to medium, whatever we want to do. And you see that little yellow arrow comes up, and that just means that there are changes that need to be synced back to Jira. And so Visor will tell you like, hey, you changed this and this information isn't in Jira yet. If you want it to be, it's easy. You just click and you can say sync Jira fields in this row, and Visor goes ahead and does that work for you and pushes all that information back to Jira. You get a cute little success guy that pops up in the corner there, and you're good to go. You can also have, for example, let's look at the labels field, right? You can select multiple things and have them surface here. And this ends up being important when you want to filter. So let's say we only want to see what Mark Jones is doing. I can visualize only what Mark Jones is doing and kind of just see what he's got going on. And it's as easy as a few clicks. Want to see it all again? Clear it, boom, done. So this is one view, but we've got multiple. We've talked about multiple. So let's move into another use case. Let's talk about roadmaps. So this is made using our Gantt view, and it looks a little boring, right? You're like, okay, this is cool, this is fun. Well, all of the filtering and the formatting that we applied on table view, all we have to do here is choose what filtering and formatting we want to see. So if I care about assignee at a glance, just toggle on the assignee formatting. Maybe I care about priority, I can toggle that on, but there's all of these different ways to visualize my data and to use color to visualize my data and to see things at a glance that I wouldn't maybe be able to do necessarily. So let's say I want to review this. Okay, cool. This is priority. And then I want to see it in a different way. It's as easy as just clicking a button. So now I'm looking at kind of assignees and that color formatting and what that looks like. And that's something that it's difficult to do in things like Excel, because you would have to change all the formatting, right? And here you can just do it with a click of a button. So that's really cool. You can also move things around. So let's say that I decide that I think the disconnect bug is going to take a little bit longer. I can just stretch that out and say, I want to start this in February of last year. I can stretch that out, and then I'll just be able to sync those dates back to Jira if I want. We're using Visor custom fields in this view. So that's another great feature as well, is let's say I want to just experiment with dates and I don't want to mess with anything date-wise in my Jira instance. I can set up my Gantt view or my timeline view to use Visor custom fields instead of Jira fields. And I can play with all of these dates with no repercussions. I can move stuff around. I can, make this longer, make this shorter, just see how I want to visualize my project in the way that works best for me or what my estimated timelines are. And if I like that, I can copy and paste those dates over to my Jira fields and sync them. But if I use Visor custom fields, I can experiment with dates day, night, 24/7 in any way I want. The most conservative project timeline, the most risky project timeline, I can visualize both of those things very, very easily and then figure out what works for my team before syncing it back to Jira. So this is our Gantt view. It's frequently used for things like roadmaps and kind of like these kind of overarching project timeline views. But our timeline view itself is really great in a couple ways. So let's talk about that. So in this one, you can see that we have, all the way over here, you can see that we have resource allocation. So we basically made our main kind of sorting field, the assignee field, And from there, I can see what everyone's working on, right? So I can see that, Sally's working on something that's hard crashing, and Mark's got this, and I see upgrading after Windows 7 thing, and there's just a lot going on here. But yeah, these ones are, oh, there we go. So here's everything we were looking for. So yes, so we can see, okay, Mark has a ton of stuff going on. These dashed orange lines indicate overlap. So we can see that Mark's spread a little thin here, and maybe we need to allocate some projects to someone else, because all Mark seems to have is this overlap. And then, it looks like Sally's got a little bit more space. So maybe we can move some of Mark's stuff over to Sally. We're able to visualize that and see that, wow, Mark really is overwhelmed. We need to help him out. Or maybe we need to push his projects out into, August, so he's got some space. We need to move things down the timeline a little bit to make sure that Mark doesn't burn out. So timeline view is really great for stuff like this, for resource allocation, because sometimes you really don't know how much someone has on their plate until you can see it. And it's a really good way to look at things like that. Another way that you can use timeline is with this priority view. So basically what we've done with priorities is you'll see that it's sourced by priority. So we can see how many highest priority items we have, how many high priority things we have, and into the mediums, the low, and then the minor. It looks like we don't have any minor stuff in this view. So we know that we're low and above. We've got a lot going on, and maybe there's a couple things from this medium that we can knock down to low. Maybe there's a couple things from this highest that really isn't that high. And that's just another way that you can use the timeline view to visualize your data in a way that's interesting and just shows different information depending on your stakeholders, right? So maybe at the capacity plan, I want to show my engineering manager, like, hey, Mark needs less projects. I know he's our top engineer, but man, he's got a lot going on. And then maybe I can show this view to my executives and say, hey, you've ranked everything as highest priority. And that's just not going to fly. We need to move some of this stuff around to make it make sense for the team and to make it make sense for what we're actually executing. So that's a really cool way to use timeline view to show kind of different information depending on the message you're trying to send. You can also do a lot with table view. So I talked about custom views for different people. This is our QA view that we've created, right? So this is just things that are high priority, that need, that's just for our QA team. And we took out some of the fields that maybe they don't care about. So you don't see as many things going on here. We've got the priority field, we've got the JIRA connection, and maybe we only care about, let's say, bugs. So we've got all of our bugs here now for the QA team. We can keep it filtered on this view. And they just have to go in at a glance and they can see all the things that are to do or in progress. And they don't need to look at the rest of this. They don't need to look at the capacity plan. They don't need to look at the roadmap. They just care about bugs. And that's what this view is for. And yeah, you can do, views based on different users, different teammates. Like this is Jack's view, where we can just go through and only see what Jack's working on. That's easy to set. Save this for him, share this with him and say, okay, Jack, this is your work. And that's a really cool way to use Visor, and the filtering and the formatting as well is just so everyone sees what they have at a glance. Yeah, that's kind of the long short of views and how Visor works. You can now edit these folder names as well. That's a recent feature we developed, but I did promise a preview into our recently released, as of today, workspace homepage, which we're really excited about. We're on the front end bringing in these awesome features that people have been asking for, and that helps them stay organized and understand what their workflows are. And that's what we're really passionate about here at Visor. So as you can see, we have now the ability to filter all of your workbooks. You can search by your workbook name. You can easily toggle in between workspaces if you have several. Some teams like to set up a sandbox and a production workspace. That's a use case we've seen before, so that you can see your sandbox instance and then click of a button, you're in your production instance, and that's really quick and easy to kind of see that data in two different ways. But yeah, so you can now edit your workbook name directly from the workspace homepage. You can add a description. So let's say, you have just a bug report and maybe that's not reflected in the title. The title has a more technical name. Well, you can come in and say, hey, these are just bugs and stuff. And you can even put little icons that help denote kind of what's going on and what you're talking about. And if I want to, create things that were just created by me, I can search that here. I can filter by only workbooks I've created, because maybe my workspace is a little bloated and everyone's creating workbooks and I really only care about what I'm working on. I can narrow that down here. I can do it by the time the workbook was created. So I'm looking for a workbook that I know I created last month to do my end of month report, but I don't want to scroll through everything. I can toggle through here. I can also do custom dates if I'd like, and pick a custom date frame, permission level. So maybe I remember that my coworker Becky shared a workbook with me to use. Someone from the audience. I see you, Becky from New Jersey. But maybe my coworker Becky from New Jersey shared a workbook with me, and I know I only have view access and I'm having the hardest time finding it. I can just search by what permission level I have. Or I could search it here as well. So I've got spreadsheets. There it is. Fantastic. And then if there's a workbook I don't need anymore, I can just delete it. I'm not going to delete any of these ones because I like these ones. But this is our new workspace homepage, and we're incredibly proud of it. And thank you to everyone who jumped on the call today to be part of this and to check it out. And I will leave some space now for questions.